The Homer They Fall is the third episode of the 8th season of The Simpsons. This is directed by Mark Kirkland and it aired in November 1996. And there were a couple of things about this episode that I quite like, but I'll be honest, it's not one of my favourites. And maybe that's just because I do not care about boxing at all. And I find that there are some quite sweet and moving moments in it, but largely because it's about boxing, I just didn't find it that interesting. There were some funny bits, but I'm not going to pretend that I loved it. I didn't hate it either, though. But the concept is quite interesting, and we get to learn a little bit more about Moe's character, because we learn that Moe was a former boxer, and when he realizes that Homer can take a lot of punches without really suffering, he decides to train Homer and get him into the boxing world. And Homer seems to be doing very well until he comes up against one impossible opponent. And it seems like things might be going a little bit south for Homer. And I won't say any more than that. Most of it takes place in a boxing ring, or at least a good proportion of it does. The first half of it I actually kind of liked. When we have Moe working with Homer, we get to see a different side of Moe. We get to see a different side to the toilets in Moe's tavern, which is certainly very interesting. I think the only other time we'd been in there before was for the quartet episode, if I remember. But then once they got to the actual kind of main boxing match, I just lost interest. And then it regained itself with something Moe did, and I won't say any more than that. So it's very much for me an up and down episode. The bits that I didn't like, I didn't hate. I wasn't bored completely, but I didn't love it the way I usually do with episodes of The Simpsons. It's got 8.1 out of 10 on IMDb, which is definitely not a bad score at all. Most episodes of The Simpsons sit somewhere between 8 to 9 out of 10, so it's definitely middle of the road there. Definitely not a personal favourite, but there are some really good moments in it that kind of make it a lot more enjoyable, and kind of help it to pick up a bit when it starts to lag for me. Never going to be a personal favourite, but The Homer They Fall is definitely not a bad episode.